Hey, thank you for joining us and welcome to our webinar, the second one in a series of webinars brought to you by Paratus through the Disaster Risk Stakeholder Hub. My name is Ben Hall. I'm from the Resilience Advisors Network, as well as being a facilitator on the CMIND platform, and I'm delighted to be your moderator today. We're joined by members of the Directed Project and the HUT Project, who I will introduce to you shortly, and we're thrilled to have so many of you here with us today. So today's topic is integrating web portals for local decision making in extreme weather risk management. But before we dive into this, I'd just like to mention a few housekeeping rules. This session is being recorded and you'll be able to access the recording later on the Disaster Risk Stakeholder Hub. Please keep your microphones off during the webinar, but we encourage you to keep your cameras on to enhance engagement. This is, however, entirely up to you, of course. And our webinar today is scheduled for 1 hour. We will reserve the last 10 minutes for questions and answers. But if you've got any questions in the meantime, then please do stick them in the chat and we will answer them at the most appropriate time. So on your screen now, you will see today's agenda. So I'm afraid you're going to have to listen to me for the first 10 minutes. And then in a short while, I will hand over to the HUT project until 1:30 before handing you over to Directed for the remainder of the webinar. As mentioned before, the last 10 minutes, we will have a question and answer session. So I encourage you to put any questions you've got throughout the webinar in the chat at the bottom of your screen. So now I'm just going to give you a little bit of an introduction to the DRS Hub before I hand over to the panelists. So as you can see there, you can visit the DRS Hub at drs-hub.eu. You can scan the QR code that is on your screen now, or you can access it through the CMIND platform. The Disaster Risk Stakeholder Hub is designed as an entry-level reference point for anyone involved in disaster risk management. It's meant for citizens, local organisations, responders, municipal and regional authorities, national and international bodies, and researchers and policymakers. It originally stemmed from the Paratus project, which engaged stakeholders across case studies in regions like the Caribbean, Istanbul, Bucharest, and the Brenner Corridor. It recognised the need for a universal platform and its scope has since expanded. So to summarise that, the idea is it is for everybody involved in disaster risk management from the ground up. Some of the key features of the hub include a baseline knowledge and tools section. So this offers you a wealth of information, including terminology, disaster databases, impact chains, hazard data, exposure, vulnerability, loss and damage data, and risk reduction measures for best practices. It's got simulation engines, so it features interactive tools such as impact chain generators, hazard assessment tools, risk assessment and reduction tools, and even serious games to enhance your learning. It's a great area for community engagement. So a bit like today's webinar, it's interactive for members. It has a members forum and we host other webinars, conferences and exhibitions through it. It's got an intelligent search engine. So it's got a structured menu and an AI-driven search facility that makes it easy to navigate through the extensive disaster database that it holds and knowledge bases that are available. And it also links to other complementary tools, so it'll connect you to additional resources such as the European Commission's Cordis platform and the UN's Disaster Risk Gateway. The hub enables greater project longevity and relevance. So by preserving valuable outputs from research and innovation projects, the hub ensures that knowledge and tools remain accessible well beyond their funding cycles. The ongoing availability supports continuous updates, learning and adaptation. It keeps projects relevant as new challenges and opportunities emerge. So what I mean by this is it allows future projects to continue building on the work that past projects have already completed. It's also a central access point for all stakeholders. So the hub functions as a unified gateway where diverse groups, from local government officials and educators to researchers and policymakers, can effortlessly access critical data, tools, and resources. It's got a user-friendly design and it promotes collaboration and enables stakeholders at all levels to engage with disaster risk management information. And the final point you'll see on the screen there is it provides opportunity for projects to store resources, share findings, and enhance their engagement. So it's a dedicated platform for archived project resources. The hub facilitates the seamless sharing of research outcomes, best practices, and innovation tools. This centralized repository not only preserves knowledge, but it also encourages active dialogue and collaborative engagement, which drives forward collective resilience and informed decision making. It also supports the projects using it with their dissemination materials. So this slide you can see now, I'm just going to talk a little bit about going from project level to cluster level and what I mean by that. So moving from an individual project level to a cluster-based approach is an exciting revolution in our collaborative efforts. It unites 15 projects under the Societal Resilience Cluster, which is hosted on CMINE. It's not only for sharing methodologies, key findings, and research outcomes, but it also creates an environment where innovation thrives through cross-project learning. This initiative allows us to pool expertise and resources, ensuring that the strengths of each project contribute to a more comprehensive and effective approach in disaster risk management. It enhances our stakeholder network by bringing together different sectors, ensuring that voices from local communities to national bodies are heard and engaged with. The cluster-based approach not only increases our collaborative impact, but it also lays the foundation for long-term sustainability and continuous knowledge exchange amongst participants. So before I hand over to the projects, I'm just going to give you a bit of a brief about what they're both about. So as said earlier, first of all, we've got the HUT. The HUT's a 4-year Horizon Europe project, which started in October 2022. It stands for the Human Tech Nexus, building a safe haven to cope with climate extremes. It's a nexus between 3 thematic areas: human behavior, governance and policy, and science and technology. It covers 6 categories of climate extremes. It's forest fires, including wildland and urban, droughts and associated water shortages, heat waves, weather-induced landslides and other slope dynamics, such as debris flows and avalanches, fluvial and pluvial flooding, and storms, including heavy rain, hailstorms, thunderstorms, and storm surges. Possible disastrous events associated with these climate extremes are addressed in 10 demonstrations across Europe, jointly by representatives of the scientific communities, practitioners, policymakers, and local communities. In this multi-hazard demonstrators arena, the HUT aims at integrating and leveraging best practices and successful multidisciplinary experiences. The project's main ambition is to promote transdisciplinary risk management tools and approaches that can be adopted and used extensively across Europe. So that's a brief introduction to the HUT, and you will hear more from them in a short while. And then we've also got with us today Project Directed. So Directed is the sister project of the HUT, which was funded under the same Horizon Europe call. The Directed team has 18 project partners that work together on the subject of disaster resilience for extreme climate events, providing interoperable data, models, communication, and governance. Directed's mission is to promote multi-risk thinking and overcome existing silos in risk management and climate change adaptation to foster disaster resilient communities. The project seeks to build long-lasting partnerships together with stakeholders in 4 real-world labs with whom they co-develop interoperable communication and risk governance capacities. The 2 core innovations of Directed are the Risk Tandem Framework and the Data Fabric. The risk tandem framework combines co-production process with risk governance frameworks. It is the project's methodology to co-develop disaster risk management and climate change adaptation solutions for the stakeholders in the 4 real-world labs. On top of that, the Directed Data Fabric is a flexible cloud-based platform that the project is co-developing with users. It can be adapted to changing CCA and DRM requirements to make data, models, and visualizations interoperable. The data fabric is built on open source software and open standards to make it more accessible and long lasting. So that's all you're going to hear from me for the time being. I'm now going to hand you over to Mikkel from the HUT project. Thank you, Mikkel.
Thank you very much, Ben, for the introduction. And I want to say on behalf of both projects that it's an ongoing work that you're going to see in the next few minutes and in this panel discussion. Therefore, your feedback is very welcome. We decided, you can use the Zoom chat without putting extra burden on different platforms here. Use the Zoom chat if you want to, while you listen to us, provide links to online resources that you deem relevant to our work, the various pieces of work that you will listen to. Could be, indeed, links to research projects, institutional websites, and so forth. And also, if you have questions or relevant comments, please go ahead, use the Zoom chat, and we will work with that. Now, I want to say to everybody, we have a technical problem with the people that are trying to connect from Iceland. They would be the first ones, they would have been, or they would be the first ones to talk. So I am asking whether they said that they are about to connect, they are trying to connect, the link is missing. Guido, what do you think? They are connecting? So if it's not too difficult for Ben, can we jump to the slide where we have Q2 before Q1? So we do the second presentation before the first one while we wait for them?
Of course.
Okay. You can skip. All right. Thank you very much. So our question is for this panel discussion, how can a web portal help a municipality in civil protection activities? So during warnings for specific things that we're addressing in our project, flash floods, landslides, debris flows. So with this question in mind, I'm also giving you like the very short answer, at least one of the possible answers is, we think that all relevant information, particularly real-time monitoring data, must be at hand for all parties involved and must be easy to understand. This is our frame, how we framed very shortly the answer to these specific questions. Next, please. Our pilot ongoing work, the one that we will present to you, is work in Italy and Spain. The end user specifically for this work, given the question, given the answer, are the mayor, the municipal civil protection, and all the volunteering associations that are together working at municipal level. We will be seeing something, or at least we are working both in Italy and Spain in 2 different case studies. And as I said before, our reference natural hazards for this specific work are shallow landslides, debris flows, flash floods. Without further ado, I give the floor to presenter Guido Rianna. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Michele. Next. So the ambition is that of developing tools to support local civil protection to cope with weather-induced hazard. Nevertheless, we are interested in prevention, preparedness stages, covering 2 different time horizons. Peacetime, to support all the phases of decision-making, and just before a potential event, to support all the action that could be important for this stage. So, next slide. As said by Michele, we work on 2 different demonstrators, 2 pilots in our project. The first one is the municipality of Amalfi, demonstrator 3. The second one is Valdaran, demonstrator 2 in Spain. So they are really different, of course, for geographical situation, for socioeconomic condition, but the weather-induced data are in many cases very similar. We are interested in exploring landslides and flash flood disaster risk reduction actions. And so, next slides. Before starting the work, we had in mind that the main issues to be tackled could be related to finding information related to weather forcing and previous events, assessing hazard and risk conditions associated with weather-induced events, and involving stakeholders in co-creation of the outputs. Next. But when we start, we understood that the main issues are related to put in the system information that in many cases is already available, but from different sources at different stages, at different maturity, and in many cases hard to be easily understood by decision makers, complementing the information, but the main part of the information is already available, beyond the simple consultation, empowering the value of local expertise and making actionable the information. Next. In a nutshell, put in the system the data, distilling the information, integrating the knowledge, enhancing the local knowledge. Next. Okay, so we can give some proof of concept that the things that we have briefly introduced. The first of all, so up to now, information about, in Amalfi context, information about precipitation are given on the regional portal, official portal, only in terms of hourly values, so cumulative 24 hours data. So no information about the exceedance of threshold are given, and notification of a threshold is exceedance is given only to the main responsible with the difficulties in sharing the information. So in this case, the platform is expected to streamline this information. Next slides. So simply, we identify the different duration and different rate gauges that are of interest for the Amalfi municipalities, and we provide information in very simple way, where green, yellow, orange, and red representing safe area, alert, pre-alarm, and alarm. We have the different duration connected to different hydrological hazards. It is quite simple to understand if a threshold is going to be exceeded, and understand how far from to exceeding a specific threshold. Next slides. Second proof of the concept idea, we are going to improve and increase their monitoring capacity. It means, from our point of view, two things. First of all, increasing the monitoring, in this case for rain gauges, in areas poorly covered by the official networks. For example, in this case, we have put a rain gauge in areas in the upper part of the basin, not covered by the official networks, and providing information about the area from which the precipitation arrives, usually in Amalfi. Next slides. But next slides again. We complement this information also with hydrological variables, in this case, volumetric water content and river discharge by small water courses crossing the area. These are information really interesting and really important to assess predisposing condition in the area and to provide complementary information to give, for example, alert and to support decision making by the civil protection in the local areas. Next. Okay, in Val d'Aran, we complement the information given by official authorities with modeling activities, improving the predictive models currently adopted in early warning system. In these slides, for example, all the framework designed, implemented to couple tackle together flash floods and landslides. Next slide. Of course, it needs technological solution, and these slides are more or less displayed all the process through which input data are processed to provide outputs in terms of information that are easily understandable by the decision makers in the graph in the bottom part. Next slides. So we had information also about future time horizon. For example, we collect information about radar mosaic as provided by Italian Civil Protection Hub. So in another portal, but we put all together the information, and also information about weather forecast. We select to this aim the most reliable sources. We identify the area of interest, and we provide information in a way that could be easily actionable by decision makers. Next slide. For peacetime, we collect also information about the exposure. So, for example, we overlap to the susceptibility map for landslides risk, so information about yellow, orange, and red areas. Also information about waiting areas, areas where population can be supported during the emergency, but also recreate B&B and hotel. Why? Because, for example, in Amalfi, tourists could be seen as vulnerable people because really aware about historical landscape value of the area, but not really aware about the potential criticalities to be addressed in the area. Next slide. Okay, we exploit also local knowledge by collecting their reporting, their information, their photos in a simple way. We develop a mobile app in Kobo Toolbox environment supporting the collection of information in a geolocalized way. And so we information about, for example, areas potentially be vulnerable after fires or needed maintenance. And so all this information can be collected after in the same platform. Next slides. Okay, we provide the information in two ways. The first one during the peacetime through a dashboard that could be used by a desktop, but also during around events by a simplified way in a mobile app so that can support decision making in active stages. Next step. Okay. Take-home messages, they are not universally valid for all contexts. Attempting to load general products, ensuring a post-hoc tailoring process is complex. It is essential to have a clear idea about target users, needs, skills, timelines that are rarely transferable to other contexts. The portal is a real good example of human tech nexus because in this one we have aspects related to human behavior, technology, and governance that are linked that should be considered together to achieve effective and lasting solution. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
I take the floor again, but I ask you to then go back to our Q1.
Of course.
So the second presentation. Thank you very much, then. And this is our other question. The role of local community web portal for residents, not for stakeholders that are different from residents, where we have communities exposed to debris flows and avalanches. Our short answer for that is enhance knowledge about hazards, increase risk awareness, promote correct behavior during emergencies. How can we do that? Well, we are trying. Next, please. We are trying where? In Iceland. And in Iceland, again, now the stakeholders are the citizens. We are in the East Fjords of Iceland, Sudafjordur and Neskapadu. I pronounce them this way. Natural hazards are debris flows and avalanches. And I ask, and then I give the floor to Ingebjörg and Gjordis to talk about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mikhail. He's ignoring you at the moment, Mikhail, I think.
I mean, I see both of them there.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear us now? Oh, great. Thank you so much. And we're really happy to be here. And we are so sorry about the bad quality of the light. We are not located.
Although you muted yourself.
Okay, can you hear us again? Sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so it's so nice to see you, and we're sorry about the bad quality of the camera. We are outside our traditional workstation. It's not that we are not trying to hide or anything. It's just the quality is not so good. So we want to talk about the community in Seyðisfjörður, which is a small village in Iceland, in the eastern part of Iceland. It has about 700 inhabitants, and it is extremely rich in culture, and the proportion of the people living there is high with regards to people of foreign origin. Now the slides are moving. Could we go?
You just tell Michelle to next.
Okay. Okay, so the goals of the project in regards to Seyðisfjörður is to develop monitoring and modeling of precipitation patterns that trigger these events, and to develop modeling for different risk factors. And what we want to do is to increase the community participation and in order to enhance their community resilience. So we have a lot of local knowledge, but we also have people that do not have the local knowledge, and they need to receive it by some means. And the conclusion is to launch a local website, which is thought as a one-stop shop that has all the information needed in order to know your natural hazards in your vicinity, but also to know how to prepare yourself, and then also to know how to respond to the impact of the events that you cannot avoid. And we have this prototype, which is a website for Seyðisfjörður. Next slide, please. And we, of course, know a lot already through the many events that have taken place here in Iceland. And one of the things that we have learned very strongly is the need for a one-stop shop for the residents, for the people who are impacted. And also, of course, if you want to be as prepared as possible in regards to future events. And the people, they need to trust information from sources, and the sources need to be trustworthy, and they need to be reliable. And there needs to be a consistency and coordination in the information sharing. So when you have different agencies working together, there need to be one voice towards the residents with regards to information. And we also know, as I mentioned, that information in Icelandic is far from enough. We have to have it in other languages as well. And we also have to take into account different societal groups with regards to both risk and disaster communication. And of course, in that same context, we need to think about the layout of the website. We did some research with regards to the perceptions of the residents and the local people who had a role with regards to the response, and we took that information into the work when working with the website. So we did interviews with different focus groups, both with the residents and also with local people who are volunteers in our system, but also people who are working within our system. And then we also visited 5 companies, local economies in Seyðisfjörður, and to get information from them, both in relation to the operation, what their aspects were with regards to how do they continue their operation in situations like these, but also how to take care of the employees in situations like this. And then we took interviews with residents from different backgrounds to get as rich data as possible. And next, please. So, and then when we analyzed all these data, we came down to themes that were very important in relation to the material on the website. So we need to have some information about the hazards that are in the local environment for people to gain this information and gain this knowledge. And then we also need to have information about the structure of the civil protection system in Iceland, because when something happens and you are stepping into a totally different landscape than your daily life is, you need to know who are in charge of what and what kind of support you can expect to receive and from whom. And then, of course, we need to have published materials such as risk assessments or response plans, status reports, etc. And it is extremely important for people to receive information about their own responsibility and what they themselves can do in order to enhance their resilience. So they need some kind of practical information and education about prevention and preparedness. They need real-time information. That was something that they found crucial. And of course, the forecast, both about precipitation or about the situation with regards to danger from landslide or avalanche. And then we also found it important to think in a long-term practice. So we want to focus on educational material for children and, of course, about well-being in challenging situations. Next slide. Yeah, so the structure for the website is that we have daily life, we have the website and how it looks like when nothing is going on, with information and education. And then the website, it changes when something is about to happen or has happened. So then they will have on this website the information needed about the procedure with regards to event if it takes place. And then we also find it extremely important that we think about this also in long term. So when the recovery phase has started, this website also has to represent that. And next slide. Yeah, and then we come to examples of the website and how it looks like now in our procedure, in the working procedure. Maybe you would like to.
Yeah, okay. This is the design. We have come, I can say we have come far with this project. This is a design as it, but we are definitely not online. It's not open, but this is a design for the website, and we make sure that the most important thing is the information from the civil protection and the monitoring from the Met Office, which is definitely the thing that people would is important for people to know, and make sure that that is very easy for people to understand what's going on. So this is the web, and if you could see next slide, there you can see the web cameras, and there you can actually see the site from Seyðisfjörður. It's all in Icelandic, so maybe it's just for you just to show, for us to show you where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the goal is the preparedness for people. Maybe next slide, I think. Then we are, yeah, this is a typical area for educational and preparedness, which we think is the most important for us to what do you say?
Yeah, this is how it is when it's divided into themes. So you click on a different box depending on what you want to know about. If you want to know about the natural hazard in the vicinity, or if you want to know something about how to talk to your children in regards to adverse events, and then you click on that box.
So as we said, this is just a prototype.
Yeah, this is a prototype, of the work that we are doing now.
That's wonderful. Thank you both so much, and thank you for stepping in at the last minute. I know there's been some illness within the hut camp, so we appreciate your time, and thank you, Gudo. I'm a little bit aware of time, so I'm going to hand straight over to Max from the Directed project to take you through the rest of the webinar.
Thank you so much, Ben. I hope you can hear me all well. Yes, all the way from the north of Europe, all the way down to the south now to Denmark. The next question that we want to examine here is, how do we develop a disaster risk management and climate change adaptation platform with and for the users to meet their needs and to ensure that the platform is used sustainably over the project's lifetime. And you will be hearing from our colleague Arnaud, who works for the capital region of Denmark, and who is going to give you a practical perspective on our approach of how we work together with the stakeholders. But first, I will briefly introduce to you the theoretical side of the answer to the question of how we develop such a platform with our users together. Next slide, please. And our approach in Directed is tackling this question in a conceptual way that you can see here on screen in the risk tandem framework. This framework combines risk management approaches and tools with an iterative co-production process in orange here on the slide. We use the risk tandem to identify the disaster risk management and climate change adaptation challenges together with our stakeholders and explore the context of these challenges. For example, the connected policies, the actors, and the technologies. And then co-produce solutions tailored to each context. A part of these solutions is often an element of data visualization and modeling that then gets implemented in our interoperability platform, the Data Fabric. We then work on integrating the knowledge and the relevant actors to help the solution we developed persist long-term. The approach we take is iterative, as I mentioned, and can be repeated to identify new or improve existing solutions. And throughout the entire process, we always have monitoring, evaluation, and learning phases that are an integral part of the framework and that help us adapt to what's needed next in the process. This is still ongoing work, and we're constantly improving and updating the risk tandem framework. But if you would like to read up on the details of the framework and maybe give us feedback on it, then there is a link here to a recently published paper by Parviainen et al. On the bottom of the slide. To get an insight, next slide, please, sorry. To get an insight now on how this approach works in a practical setting and how it helps us co-produce with our stakeholders, you will be hearing now from Arnaud in our real-world lab in Denmark. And with that, I would like to hand over to you, Arnaud, and we move on to the next slide. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Max. I hope you can all hear me well. Yes. All right, super. So yeah, first of all, I would like to say thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today to tell a little bit about the Danish Real World Lab and the work we're doing in Denmark within Directed. To start with, the Danish Real World Lab is based in the Roskilde Fjord, which last year was designated as a national flood risk area by the Danish Coastal Authority under the EU Floods Directive. And I have some maps here to set you a little bit in context. The first map shows a map of Denmark, and we can see the Roskilde Fjord, which is located northwestern of Copenhagen, for those who are familiar with the Danish geography. But if not, if you follow the orange arrow, you will be able to see how the geography of the fjord looks like, with the city of Roskilde located in the south. And if you follow with me one map to the right, there is a map which was provided by the Danish Coastal Authority, where they have mapped in red the areas along Roskilde Fjord that are in risk of coastal flooding. So Yeah, and if now you're a little bit curious about how beyond the maps, how the Hoskilefjord looks like, I also inserted a couple of pictures. The top one shows the Hoskile Harbor, and the one at the bottom shows an area of summer houses where in 2013, during Storm Bodil that impacted Denmark, it was an area that was flooded. So as a result, a little dike was built and also some sluice gates to prevent the water from the fjord to come in and flood this area of summer houses. So that's just to give you an idea of the Danish Renewable Lab and the area that I'll be talking about in the next slides. Next slides, please, Ben. Thank you. So with that overview, who are we working with in our Danish Renewable Lab? In the Hoskilefjord, we have 3 different local emergency services that they serve 7 municipalities. And to make things a little bit more complex, 2 out of these 7 municipalities, they belong to our neighboring region of Sjælland. So overall, this is just to say that once you are on the ground and you're working with all the different stakeholders, it gets complex. We have also tried to engage with some national agencies. So when you have all these stakeholders, something that became very clear when we started talking to them was that there was a need of coordination and a need to improve the communication and the knowledge exchange, both in terms of like climate adaptation, but also disaster risk management. And that's what we've been really trying to do over the past months and now even years. Next slide, Ben, please. So how this co-production process to create a platform and that can hopefully serve both those working with climate adaptation and those working with disaster risk management. Our journey started back in 2023 when we first gathered some of the stakeholders, and the first step we did was try to narrow down where in Denmark we should locate our renewable lab. So that was the first step. Once we agreed that it should be the Hoskilefjord, then we proceeded with getting the renewable lab activated. And that's when we did our first workshop back in March of 2023, where we gather all our stakeholders together and we somehow try to map down and narrow down what are the challenges, what are the needs that our stakeholders have. Through this process, we also realized that we needed to get a little bit more deeper into this, setting the problem and setting the right landscape. So we decided to do some stakeholders interviews one-to-one to somehow better understand all these problems. After having done this, once we gather all the results from our interviews, we conducted a second workshop last summer where we again gathered all our stakeholders together. And here we tried to do a prioritization exercise where we said, okay, this is we have now mapped out the different challenges you experience. Can we maybe somehow try to agree on which should be a priority for you and which are the ones where maybe directed should help you? And the result from that workshop was that most of our stakeholders, they felt a strong need of having a data platform, an online portal where they could all have access to the same type of information. And that's where the data fabric comes into place, and which my colleague from Directed, Ben, will tell you a little bit more in about a second. So once we somehow agreed that there was this need for this data fabric and this data platform, we show our stakeholders some mock-ups. We try to collect some feedback, and thanks to the work of the Directed partners, we are hoping to present a beta version of the data fabric to our stakeholders now in April. So in a little bit more than a month, we'll be gathering again our stakeholders together for a third stakeholder meeting where we will hopefully present the platform. Next slide, please, Ben. So what are the next steps in the Danish Renewable Lab? Well, we want to continue advancing towards this climate change and disaster risk management platform. And in order to do so, we believe that it is very important to sustain the communication and the dialogue that we have initiated within the project. And that's something that most of our stakeholders have been very open through the process. They all agree that it's been very beneficial to sit down together and have this opportunity for like exchanging exchanging knowledge and ideas, which is not something that they were able to do before in a structured way. As mentioned, we would like to present the data fabric to our stakeholders in April. We would like to collect some feedback in order to fine-tune the data fabric a little bit. And we are even thinking beyond and forward. We believe that in the future, for the project ends, it would be very interesting to maybe try to gather all our stakeholders together and carry out a simulation exercise where the data fabric, this platform, can come into place. And of course, one of our objectives and one of our goals is to make sure that we can sustain this knowledge exchange and hopefully the use of the data fabric beyond the project. So that's also something that we're trying. And as we move forward and we carry out the different steps, we also try to keep that in mind, how we can ensure that this data fabric and all this process that we have initiated is sustained in the future. So that's all from me. Now I'll hand over to my colleague Ben, who will guide you a little bit through this data fabric and will let you know, a little bit more of the technical aspects. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arnaud. Yes, so on from the practical aspects of working together with the stakeholders in our real-world labs, we now go on to the question, what does it take to make these platforms that host data and models interoperable? And instead of our colleague Benedikt Grela, it will be Stefano speaking to us, coming from Gecosistema in Rimini, Italy, and he will give us an introduction to what we are building with the data fabric in the project. Next slide, please, and over to you, Stefano.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Thank you, Max. I'm not Ben, I'm Stefano. Okay, so today I will walk through the key requirements and challenges and solutions for achieving interoperability in the field of disaster risk management and climate change adaptation. So from our experience, as we are developing the data fabric in the context of the data-directed project, the first most important requirement is an open and collaborative mindset among the different authorities, the data providers, and also the modelers. So this is not always present. This is the most important key requirement that we have seen in order to reach and to fulfill full interoperability and start to developing a platform and solution for supporting DRM and CCA. The second aspect is to try to standardize the access to data and tools and models, also to execute model through API, common APIs standard format. Another important requirement that we have noticed and seen is now the evolution of cloud solution. So also the formats of data is becoming more important. So, I mean, there are a lot of data formats that are considered interoperable, like CSV, GeoJSON, or NetCDF. But as now we have an evolution of this platform towards cloud framework, also cloud optimized data format like COG, cloud optimized GeoTIFF, ZAR, and Xarray are becoming a key element in order to have an efficient and generate efficient and deploy efficient platform. Yes, and the other element is to have modular software for to be executed among the different various platforms. So have the possibility to Dockerize the modeling tools and call the execution of the model through API commands. And yeah, and each element should refer to open standards. In particular, we are looking to OGC, Open Geospatial Consortium standards, in order to have a common framework to develop our interoperability tools and solution. The next slides with, please. Okay, so interoperability is not a about linking only data and model is also making sure that the results are meaningful and actionable. First of all, we should also align methodologies in terms of hazard assessment, vulnerability, and impact forecasting. And all the data and tools should be documented. There should be a sort of we should fulfill transparency and usability through the metadata production. So metadata are becoming more important. And also at the end, good documentation should enhance explainability, foster awareness about bias and risk, and enable knowledge sharing. Interoperability enable disaster risk management and climate change adaptation professionals to better understand each other's data, models, and decision-making process. Next slide. So what we are working for is the data fabric. So the data fabric in Direct is a crucial component of our interoperable platform. First of all, it's open source. It's modular and federated. So this means that we can tailor the solution according to user needs. So we can tailoring both the backend and the front end in order to fulfill the user requirements. It's based on open standard, ensure that different organization and role can collaborate efficiently. It provides also a user authentication mechanism in order to control the access and ensure security and reliability of the platform. Next slide. So let's see now how we fulfill and we reach the data interoperability in the data fabric. So first of all, the data should be published and should be accessed through OGC protocol. The discovery of the data rely on metadata and standard through API records. And we are able, through our data ingester or data steward, to collect and generate data collection with the PyGAPI process. And we are able to serve this collection to the different applications that are developed inside the data fabric. The same concept is more or less replicated in the next slide with the models. So in the data fabric, we have a set of models able to, for example, simulate flood hazards or flood risk. We have the safer places and the RIM2D models provided by partners inside the project. And we have Climada for NDTU model for damage assessment. We have developed for each model an API interface, and each model has been Dockerized, and so we are able to orchestrate the execution of the model. Next slide, please. Through PyGAPI process. This will ensure that even the cloud resources that are requested by each model can be activated on demand through this PyGAPI process without losing resources in terms of computational power. Then we have a front end. Next slide, please. So a strong front end is needed to make data and models accessible to decision makers. We start co-designing the front end with the end users. The application is developed as an open source application, web application. And so we share in a GitHub the code among all the users. And yeah, and the user can execute simulation, visualize data in real time in a synchronous mode, or just displaying pre-processed simulation. Conclusion, next slide. So to sum up, achieving interoperability in disaster risk management and climate change adaptation require a technical solution, so API development, data format, and modular software. It requires also policy guidance, clear frameworks for data sharing and collaboration, and finally, an institutional alignment, ensuring that all the organization and all the stakeholders work together towards a common goal. Thank you.
Stefano, thank you. Arnau and Max, thank you all for giving your time for that. That was wonderful. Up there in the corner of your screen is the QR code if you want to see more about what Directed are doing. So we've run 5 minutes over time, but nothing too bad. I'm going to hand over to Sonia now, and we're going to run through a quick Q&A session. There's been some in the chat, which I think we'll run through first. And then after that, we will contact you outside of the webinar rather than take up everybody's time. Sonia, over to you.
Thank you, Ben. Yes, thank you for the presentations. I've written down some keywords for this webinar, and I think the keywords are coordination and knowledge exchange. So we have seen different examples throughout Europe, and it has been very interesting. So I think the questions in the chat have already been answered. Given the limited time, I would strongly suggest the participants to put their question in the disaster risk stakeholder app. I will put the link in the chat. So even if the webinar will close in a few minutes, you are very welcome to keep the discussion ongoing in the app, and the relevant speakers can, we can start the discussion there with the relevant speakers and also with the other participants of the app. So I'm copying and pasting the link, and I will hand over to you, Ben, in order for the closure and final messages.
That's great. Thank you very much, Sonia. Yeah, so as Sonia says, if you do have any further questions, please engage through the DRS hub. Have a look through it, see what you think. Please keep in mind that it is very much in its early stages of creation, and we are trying to build this bigger beast to help serve us all better going forward. So with that, I'd just like to say thank you to all the speakers. An extra thank you to those of you who have joined us. You can contact anybody who's spoken today or any of us here through the CMIND website. So please, if you're not a member, register on there, and we are all contactable through there. But with that, I will leave you all. I will leave you with the QR code there, which will take you straight to the DRS hub if you would like to visit it. Anything else from any of our speakers? Getting lots of nodding heads. There you go. We've given you back 2 minutes of your day. There was me saying we're running behind time, but we finished 2 minutes early. Thank you very much.
Ben, maybe we can remind, since there is a question in the chat, that the recording will be available. So all the participants will receive the recording of the webinar, and also a questionnaire that we kindly ask you to fill in, because this is a webinar series, so there will be other webinars coming up, and we wanted to make it as interesting as possible for you. So you will receive the recording plus the questionnaire via email. And that's it, also from my side. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Sonia. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, colleagues, for organizing it.
Bye,
Have a good day.
Thank you.